Welcome to Haunted Escapes with Chris and Diane.
This podcast will talk about strange and mysterious stories from around the world.
Some will be about places we've been and experienced for ourselves,
as well as things we've learned and read about, including hauntings, folklore, and cryptids.
Join us on our Haunted Escapes.
Dusk falls over the Santa Lucia Mountains as you hike along the trail. You stop for a second and wipe sweat from your brow and grab a drink of water. It has been a long, exhausting day. Suddenly, you feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up, and a chill runs down your back. You have the feeling of being watched. You turn your head up toward a high ridgeline and see a large shadow. Even from this distance, it has to be close to 10 feet tall. It is an ominous form holding a walking stick. Your blood runs cold. As you turn your head back, the figure is gone. You have just encountered a Dark Watcher.
Hi friends, welcome to Season 5 of The Activity Continues, a paranormal podcast. I'm Amy, the producer and host of this show, along with Megan and the other Amy. We are three soul friends who love to talk about the Dead Files TV show, along with other spooky and spooky adjacent things.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan, our resident scaredy cat. I love this stuff, but it absolutely terrifies me.
It doesn't terrify me.
Me neither.
Most of the time. Hey everyone, I'm the other Amy, sometimes referred to as Amy, ABP, or AP, and I'm the voice of reason in the chaos, trying to keep these two spooky, goofy, lovely ladies in line. We're creating a community of like-minded friends who love to discuss all things paranormal. Come join us, where
the activity continues.
Welcome to Haunted Escapes with Chris and Diane.
Hello.
Today's episode, we'll be doing another one based on creepy shadow people. These shadow people are called the Dark Watchers.
I've never really heard of them. So, Chris, what do you think of the Dark Watchers? What do you think they are?
I don't know. I never actually really heard of them until we were watching YouTube and it was on there. And it just kind of got my interest because we had just done the episode on shadow people, and this was another shadow people thing, but it wasn't like other shadow people stories where it's usually at nighttime, and I think it's, it comes from sleep paralysis and stuff like that. This was something totally different. So, it sounded really interesting. Looking forward to learning about them.
Yeah, from our research, people are wide awake. They're actually outside hiking. From my research, what I think they are, if they actually exist, I think there's some kind of maybe wood spirit or something of that sort that's watching you, making sure you mind your manners when you're on the hiking trail.
Yeah, that's a cool idea of what they could be, especially since this one is mainly talking about in California, but finding stuff to talk about in this episode, I also realized that I found some stuff saying how in Scotland they have creatures similar to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty neat, and that works into the whole where it could be lore from all over the world, and this is just the one from this country.
Oh, that's really cool.
So yeah, it sounds pretty cool.
So let's get into what they actually are. So up on the ridges of the Santa Lucia Mountains of California, there are reports of shadow figures known as, and I'm going to say this the best I can, Los Vigilantes Oscuros, or the Dark Watchers. They are reported as being 7 to 10 feet tall shadow people, yet there are some reports of them being small, almost midget-like. They are often reported as wearing hats and giving off a feeling of dread. They are said to be able to climb to heights or parts of the mountain where no human can safely be and stare out into the ocean completely motionless.
That's another interesting thing, because when we were doing the episode on the shadow people, remember we were talking about the Hat Man.
Yeah.
And the stories of the Hat Man, he's usually followed by the feeling of dread, and then something bad happens. And now these things also, there's that same weird feeling of dread that comes when you see them.
Yeah, all of these spooky cryptid creatures usually a lot of them seem to give off a feeling of dread, like the Black-Eyed Children, the Hat Man. I'm sure there's a bunch of other ones.
Yeah, it's probably just your body's way of that warning. I just thought that this one's interesting because, again, these things are supposedly really tall. They have hats.
Mm-hmm.
And the Hat Man is supposedly a tall... I think he's almost the same height. And he has a hat as well, so it's interesting.
Maybe they're the same thing, or maybe they're like cousins or something.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe it's like the same type of creature.
It's interesting. And they are also sometimes seen wearing cloaks and carrying staffs. They appear between late afternoon and twilight, but they do not appear to everyone. If you're carrying a firearm or a weapon, they tend to stay away. However, if you are wearing old clothes and are unarmed, they appear to you.
That's kind of weird. Like, they only show up if you're wearing older clothes. I wonder why that is. Here's a word from a podcast we think you might like.
What's going on? This is John Olson, and I am the host of Scalarious. Scalarious is your new favorite paranormal and comedy podcast. At Scalarious, we talk to comedians about paranormal experiences they've had while on the road, whether it was in a hotel they were staying in, a bar, club, or theater they were performing in, or maybe it was just a story they were dying to tell. Either way, Scalarious is the podcast that you need to hear. You can find Scalarious anywhere there's podcasts, but specifically right here on Spotify.
Now back to Haunted Escapes.
And no one is able to get really close to them, so they appear to have no facial features, as they will vanish if you attempt to approach them, leaving no trace that they were ever even there. Their history goes back to the first Spanish explorers that encountered them while navigating the mountain, and American settlers who hiked the mountain not always saw them, but had a feeling of being watched. The Chumash people have no records of them, only a few legends that whatever is seen out there has been there a long time.
Yeah, the Chumash are like Indian tribe, I think, and they lived in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And people said that they had all kinds of stories of seeing it, but then upon like people checking into that and studying it here, apparently they really don't have anything like that. So it's just one of those things where people just make it up.
Yeah, so some people say that they are just migratory people observing but avoiding hikers on the mountain, while others are convinced that they are supernatural beings that aid those that have gone off the path.
That's interesting. I don't know how you could see they're just regular people who are walking around in the mountains. I mean, if so, why is it that you can't see their faces?
Yeah, I find that kind of strange too. I don't think that they're regular people. If they're regular people, they're not just, they're not going to be shadows just looking at you. But experts say that they are just hallucinations brought on by the change in altitude or just a figment of one's imagination. There's also a phenomenon known as Brocken specter, and it's the magnified and apparently enormous shadow of an observer cast in midair upon any type of cloud opposite a strong light source. The figure's head can be surrounded by a bright halo-like rings of rainbow-colored light, which appear opposite the sun's direction when uniformly sized water droplets in clouds refract and backscatter sunlight. I'll put a picture of this in our YouTube video. I've seen what people say it might be, but I don't think this is what they are. I'll have to show you a picture of this Brocken specter and see what you think of it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, let me show you.
Yeah, this whole Brocken specter, that's pretty interesting. It looks pretty cool, but I don't know if that's actually it, because unless every single one of, because in this picture it has like that rainbow light halo around it, and a lot of these stories don't say that they have that. It just says it's these tall shadows. So I don't know. I mean, it could be, but then again, maybe it's not.
And there's a lot of reports where dark watchers are seen between afternoon to dusk. So I would think that's more like when the sun is going down, so you're not going to have as strong a light source.
Yeah, that's true, too. That's a good point.
Author John Steinbeck included them in his short story called Flight. In the story, the main character's mother warns him to stay away from the Dark Watchers. Steinbeck's mother was a believer in them and would leave fruit and nuts for them out on her way to school. On her way home, she would find flowers left in the same place she left her offering.
See, now that also, I like, that goes towards your whole idea of it being like a woodland spirit.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of folklore, woodland spirits like that and different mythical creatures, like the fairies and fae of over in, Ireland, Scotland, and probably other places as well. But that's what you do. You would leave them as an offering, or give them something as a treat, and then they'll give you something back, or they'll watch out for you. So that also adds
that's
to your,
cool.
I think that adds some weight to your idea that they're these woodland spirits.
Maybe so.
And they don't ever hurt nobody.
Yeah, they just watch you. Kind of creepy, but so. No one is quite sure who is watching over the Santa Lucia mountain range. With so many stories and encounters, no one is alone on those trails.
That's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. So here are some stories of possible encounters with these dark watchers. So this story is from WeirdCalifornia.com. It's from Dan of Arizona, and he wrote this January 15th, 2021. He says, back when I was a teenager, I used to go hiking in the desert in a mountain range where I lived 7 miles outside of Blythe, California. One afternoon, I went deeper into the mountain range than I had ever hiked before, when I felt like I was being watched. The hairs on my arms stood up. I quickly started looking around, fearing a mountain lion was nearby.
Oh, jeez.
When I looked up towards the top of the mountain and saw a small cave-like opening at the top of a sheer wall. There, looking out towards the valley, I could see a hooded human figure.
Ooh.
I could not see its face since it looked like it was covered by a thin veil, but the hood and cloak looked tattered and ripped. The figure made no movements. I turned around and started to walk back the way I came and never went back to that area of the mountain range. That area was not traveled since there are no dirt roads or tracks, so who knows what was up there. All I know, it was not human, and I've never been back since. This was back in the mid-90s.
Wow. So that's a really good story. That's really scary. Yeah, especially being, in the woods by yourself. That would have scared me.
Absolutely. I would have done the same thing he did. I would have turned around and got out of Dodge.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I like that one. The next story is also from Weird California, and this is from Joey of Silmer, California, on January 24th, 2016 said, I'm a long-distance runner, and most of my training is up in the good old Californian mountains. I had a long run scheduled, so I headed out. I headed to Veterans Park in the San Fernando Valley, and the time of day was 2:00 p.m. I was running up in the area where no human could climb without gear. I saw a black figure in plain daylight. I've never seen anything like it up in the mountain. Was darker than dark and could not explain it. A year passed, and today again, January 24th, I saw it again and in the same spot. That's crazy. So he's seeing the exact same thing at the exact same spot a year later.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Next story is also, I think most of these are from Weird
they're
California.
all from Weird California.
So this story is by Elizabeth Benitez of San Mateo, California. It was, posted on December 20th of 2013. She said, I remember one day my friend and I were coming back from Los Angeles. We passed the San Luis Obispo Reservoir, and as we drove on the road, I saw something at a distance down at the end of the mountain. It was a really big human figure, but it wasn't. It had a black cape kind of like the Grim Reaper, and it was leaning over, holding onto a staff at a puddle of water. Or so that is what it seemed at a distance. It was in the daytime too, so I couldn't identify it wasn't a person. Even in mid-light, he was very black and reminded me of a raven. I told my friend that was driving to look over at the mountains, and surprisingly she was able to see a glimpse of it. I asked her what she saw without giving her my details, and she said exactly what I saw. She only looked at it for about 5 seconds, but she was able to see it. She almost lost control of the car too when she looked away at it, and I begged her to go back and see it, but she was very tired and driving already. These dark watchers are real.
Oh, that's really scary too. Seeing something that looks like a big Grim Reaper up in the mountains, that would scare me, because you don't know what it is, and you hear stories about these watchers, so, I don't know, it could be that.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody who lives in the area probably knows the stories, so...
Yeah. probably like an urban legend thing.
Yeah, so right away when you see something like that, you probably immediately think that's what it is.
Mm-hmm. I'd be scared too if I'm driving all day and have to go. I wouldn't go back over there.
Yes.
And the last story we have, also from Weird California, and he goes by the name of Kickboy Face. So, many years ago, I was with a friend driving through a dirt field here in Moreno Valley, near Alessandro, the old east part, near what I believe were old abandoned barns that I always heard were haunted when my friend's car broke down. It could have been a coincidence it was a beat-up Volkswagen Bug. It was dusk at best, and there was no way we were going to make it out of the field before it was pitch black, and instead of chancing getting retardedly lost and or hurt in the dark, we decided to sleep in the car and set out in the morning to go get help to tow the car. It was way before the days of everyone having cell phones and quick help. As we were killing time in the pitch black now, we were hanging outside and inside the car, killing time, sharing smokes, and we started to distinctly see what looked like black shadows, evenly distributed, completely encircling us. They did not move. They stayed motionless, but were of significant size, and based on the distance, I would say at least the size of a small car like the Bug we ourselves were in. Whatever these were seemed hunched over, perhaps kneeling. Time passed, they never moved, and though we walked around the car and got in and out of the car to see if what we were seeing was some sort of optical illusion, yet we couldn't explain or discredit what we were seeing. To this day, it racks my brain.
That's a pretty good story, too. Man, they were really watching those two.
Yeah, I know, right?
Went up to no good. So, what do you think they are?
I still think there's some kind of woodland spirit, maybe just some old, ancient entity just looking over the area.
Yeah, after listening to the stories and everything, I kind of agree with you. I think that they probably are like if they're real, they're some kind of a spirit that seems to be watching over nature and probably making sure that, nothing happens to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a cool story. And it's really neat that, like I said, there was the story over in Scotland where it was similar to that. So it's just neat thinking that, these things might be out there.
Yeah, that's cool that it's not only subject to California, but it could be something worldwide. We don't know. Yeah,
if anybody lives anywhere outside of California or in California and you've seen these things, if you could, leave a comment and tell us your story. We would very much like to hear it.
Yes, absolutely. You can also go to our website, penepichproductions.wixsite.com/haunted, and leave your story there. And it'll have up-to-date information as well as Facebook.
Yeah, so thank you very much for listening to this episode, and I hope you liked it, and if you did, give us a thumbs up or a couple stars for a good rating. We enjoy doing these stories, and we hope you all enjoy listening to them. So, yeah, thank you again for listening, and as always, thank you for joining us on our Haunted Escapes.
Oh, and one more thing before I go. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, especially because some of the places we've been have certain events, like Holmesburg Prison. The Free Library of Philadelphia is holding a presentation on Holmesburg Prison tomorrow at 5 p.m., and I posted information on our Facebook page. And also, Fort Mifflin does events throughout the year, and I know that Myrtles does some events throughout the year, so I'll be sure to be posting more of those on our Facebook page.
Everybody, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.